My next guest has been accurately described as pure class, grace, humility, sophistication, intelligence, and real. She is the mother of 2 daughters, grandmother of 1, attorney at law, law partner, and wife of Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. You know I'm speaking of Mrs. Sharon Clarke-Rowley. Thank you so much. It's great to have you in the studio.
Good morning, Rennie, and thank you for having me.
I thank you. That excellence that many have spoken about, that grace, that comfort, that calm, and that sunshine is evident here this morning. So it's good to have you here.
Thank you.
Good enough. How difficult is it, Mrs. Rowley, being the wife of the country's prime minister, a position that requires a Teflon kind of demeanor, and I guess opinion restraint in the public arena? How difficult is that role?
Rennie, it has not been difficult, and really those descriptions that you have given me, I put them aside. For the past 30 years, I think I have been really put in a type of role which has prepared me for the present. And I say that because I married the Prime Minister in 1985. He was then a geologist, so I was then the wife of a geologist. And then by 1986, I became the wife of an opposition senator. And thereafter, I was the wife of a government minister, the wife of a backbencher when he was no longer in government. Then I became the wife of the leader of the opposition. And finally, on September 9th, 2015, I was the wife of the Prime Minister. So in a sense, it is a role that I have not been totally unaccustomed to.
My overnight ascent has had many years in preparation.
Indeed. So that you found that I was then thrown onto the public stage. And I continued to be the person that I was 30 years ago, and I continue to be that person. A change in one's status does not necessarily mean that there's a change in personality. So the individual that I was then, I am the individual that I am now. So while you quote that Teflon demeanor, which means I'm impenetrable, I'm quite far from that. I consider myself an affable person.
I was going down to see if I could pierce that wall a little later on. So you have been able, because of the many years and the different positions held, you've been able to take your silent admiration for the geologist that turned into a marriage. You've been able to go along with that, go through his different postings, get yourself in this place where you know how you can separate that world from this world. But how difficult has it been raising your children in the glare of the public spotlight? Not just the glare of the spotlight, but because of what children hear, and children are easily impressionable. In addition to that, they hear things that you cannot protect their ears from hearing. How difficult has that been?
Strangely enough, again, my girls went to Bishop Anstey Junior School and then Bishop Anstey High School, so that when we would have started in this, they were at Bishop Anstey Junior School. And they were at that age when you could protect them. So there was absolutely no problem. Even as they moved into Bishop Anstey High School, they were in an environment when there was no attack that was really forthcoming and which affected them. By the time they were at university, they of course are now mature individuals, and you are dealing with persons who come from all walks of society, all sides of the political divide, and you found that at that stage they were being drawn into the politics. The social media was something which was more prevalent, is more prevalent now. So you find that even as grown women, I as a mother feel the need that I need to protect them. And the last election was no exception to that.
Brutal.
I think it was brutal, to use your words, and it was a sign that people can stoop to the lowest depth.
Yes.
And you then have to be able psychologically to take yourself out of it. And that is where probably that Teflon demeanor that you speak of, that mental wall, comes into being, and you then have to protect yourself. And in doing so, you know the truth. I remember my husband in one particular situation where accusations were made about me having some $6 million in a bank account in the Cayman. And it affected me greatly. And he said to me, very matter-of-factly, do you have a bank account that I don't know of? And I said, well, no, And basically,
what are you concerned about?
That's right.
I think ladies in the arena of power share the same thing. If I am to channel Michelle Obama, when they go low, we go high.
That's right.
In case you just locked into us, Mrs. Sharon Clarke-Rowley is my guest. As we mentioned, she is an attorney, accomplished one at that. So it does raise the question, how difficult is it being the Prime Minister's wife and maintaining a professional career?
That is when time management comes into play. As an independent person, I have not given up my practice as an attorney at law. And as I tell everybody, on September 8th, 2015, I was in my office at 8 a.m. And I continue to be there. In fact, since I live a little closer to my office, I am there before 8. And I leave between 4:30 and 5 after 4 days'
Full
work.
day.
So that, as I say, time management comes into play. My job is my job. The wife of the Prime Minister is not really a job. And you just mentioned Michelle Obama, but that, the FLOTUS, is a job. I don't have that job, but I create for myself the limits which I can operate within as the wife of the Prime Minister. So in that regard, I work from 8, as I say, to 5, and our political events or state events will come after that hour. So I then fit that into the schedule. And if I am asked to babysit my grandson, I fit that into the schedule. I fit in the gym 3 times a week, just for half an hour on each occasion, but I do get there. Having to be, my daughter propels me there. So there are times when I don't
She
really
was the one
want
who
to
got
go.
you there in the first place, wasn't she?
Exactly.
Yes,
You have it on point. So that, as I say, so it's just really a question of time management. Fortunately, I don't go to court, because I think if I did, that would make a whole difference.
Yes.
I head my firm's conveyancing department, and that in itself has its stresses, but you cope with those things. And you live life as you should.
Time management, something I myself have to learn. Instilling values of honesty, integrity, and scholarship were dear to your parents. Your dad in particular, from what I read, was protective and very strict, they tell me. Speak to your relationship with your folks and their role in your resolve.
I had a wonderful relationship with my parents, despite the fact that my dad was strict, and strict in the sense that he had 3 daughters. So when you have 3 daughters, as a man, you also know what you, as a man, you would have been capable of. So you need to know that your daughters are well protected. So he would allow us freedom, but within restraint. So he would ensure that he dropped us to parties, he picked us up, and all our friends jumped on board because they will get a drop. He was also the kind of father who believed and instilled in us good moral values. Both my parents, good moral values, spirituality, integrity, scholarship. And the scholarship part of it, my parents were public servants, but they ensured that their 3 girls went on from, again, we went Bishop's Junior, Bishop's High, and all on to tertiary education, because you need to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. You need to be independent women, and I have used that. Keith and I have actually taken a similar resolve with regard to our girls and ensured that they followed my path and they are sufficiently independent to be able to stand on their own 2 feet.
That's an area I'm going to pick up on that, but you said something about your dad and it left me chuckling, and it sort of reminded me, I'm actually going to do it. It reminded me of what Ronald Reagan said, trust but verify.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh, you doing that? Okay, go ahead. I'll meet you after.
Oh, he did. In fact, I even remember going out with Keith and coming home, and therefore this was after university, and coming home, and it must have been about 3 o'clock in the morning, and Daddy was up still. And I said, well, what are you doing up? He says, well, I was looking at TV, but in those days, TTT signed
at
off
12
at
o'clock.
12, you know. So, yes.
Watching the TV.
Exactly. But, you know, it was all good. It was really all good.
That's good to hear. Sharon Clarke-Rowley, Mrs. Sharon Clarke-Rowley, the wife of the president of the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, we have as our guest here. There are many women who, while accomplished, have had to compromise and in some instances sacrifice their careers for that of their husbands. There are, however, exceptions like yourself. At what age and from whom did you get your stand on your own 2 feet lessons?
Again, it's back to those parents of mine. We were actually taught to be independent women. I take it a step further and I say to my girls, be not dependent on any man financially. And I'm qualifying it, and this is why I say financially. So it is important for you to get your own education, to get your own job, to be able to manage on your own, because I don't want any man playing themselves with you.
Hello.
Right? And for any person who has daughters, I say to you, ensure that your children are independent young women.
There are many women, Mrs. Rowley, in our country. They are victims of domestic violence. It's instructive that you say that. Sometimes they feel trapped owing to fear, feeling helpless, financial dependency, which you just addressed, self-esteem, or for the sake of the children reason. What advice towards dealing with the abuse they're experiencing would you give to ladies this morning? Those who have, for one reason or the other, say, I am here because of this.
That's right. And very often, we who are not the subjects of that abuse very easily say, get away, run away from it. I mean, there are calypsos on that, run away. But it's probably not always that easy to run away. But you have to look for support. There are agencies out there. If you have family members, you need to turn to them, because I am certain that there's someone there who will be prepared to help you to take yourself out of that difficulty which you experience. And I say to them, it will not be easy, but you need to be confident about taking that step and moving away. And don't go back, because many of them, for some reason, feel sorry for that individual who they spent perhaps a good part of their life with. But are you satisfied with the way that you are being treated as a woman? And if you are not satisfied, then try your best to walk away. And you do it for the children, and you say, I'm going to stay in this for the children, but you are damaging the children in the process.
Yes.
And
because you're teaching them a different kind of normal.
That's right.
That invariably their lives will be measured or could be measured.
And you are so correct. And this is why I'm saying, because one of my passions is about parenting. And as a parent, it is your responsibility to protect your child, but you also to show them that they must show respect for others. You must show them that they have a responsibility not only to themselves but to others. And when you teach your children respect, then they will then exhibit that as they get older. Gotcha. You know, the book of Proverbs says, train up your child as he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. And I believe in that. You can be your child's mentor. You can be your child's guide. And it is up to us as parents to do that.
Many look up to
Yeah.
you, and understandably they would. It is good to hear the advice you're passing on to them. Your two daughters, you, in addition to your two daughters, you excelled in sports and academics at Bishop Anstey High School. You've gone on to inspire many professionals, women in general, see you as deservedly so a role model. Many admiring of and seeking to emulate you may not be beneficiaries of that family foundation. And while we pass on the advice to them in the area of domestic violence, there are many other hurdles that confront women, many other obstacles in their way. And some of them may not have the feeling, that self-esteem we spoke about in the domestic violence context, but in a general context now, they lack that, and they need that extra push. So they say, I want to follow Mrs. Rowley, you know, but she had this, I didn't have this. I don't think I can do that. What do you say to them?
And my response to them is, whatever the circumstances in your life, wherever you may have come from, how much money you have, even whatever your ethnicity may be, because I mean that at times plays an important part in Trinidad and Tobago and in the world all over. These things should not prevent you from pursuing your dreams. And I say to you, dream big, be ambitious, and realize your potential, because all of us has within us some form of potential, and we just have to seek it out and develop on it. And then for women, I say specifically, let gender not be the barrier to your aspirations. You as a woman can do whatever you want to do. There is a glass ceiling out there that can be broken. And we don't just leave that to speak at International Women's Day when, you know, everybody comes out and speaks about women and what they can do. This must be done 365 days a year. And in order to achieve that, we can't do it on our own. We have to have the men at our side to help us women achieve that agenda.
That mantra I would like to hear mothers use with their daughters, beginning with the one that your father passed on to you. Do not make yourself dependent on anybody. Financially is a good start, because if that is understood, then it works very well. And I think it was David Lawson, that said you cannot revisit your youth through your children. However, you can guide them, which is the reason you are the parents. You've got two accomplished painters in your daughters. What was your early exposure to art, and did anything that you say help influence them into their painting path, as it were?
You know, you raise that, Rennie, and I turn to the left and I look out on the wall of the oval and I see my daughter's painting. So that one is on this side, one is on the other side. So both of them have been placed on the wall of the oval.
Right.
And art has been something which has always been dear to me, and that passion that I would have had and that my sister had, because my elder sister did art education at university. Her master's was in the area of art, and she also paints. And my parents would have nurtured that in us. So as children, instead of going out and buying birthday cards and Christmas cards, we had to make our own. And we were very inventive in the process. They would give us fabric paints. And I mean, this was when I was in secondary school. I would buy jerseys and paint them. And when my sister was getting married, I painted my mother's dress that she wore as mother of the bride.
Yes.
So that you always were encouraged in the field of the art and visual arts. And then I did the same with my girls, both Keith and I. So we would buy them, because Keith is also a lover of art. He cannot paint, and I know he may be listening to me, and he knows he cannot paint, but I can.
He may disagree, I'm sure.
But no, he is an avid lover of the arts. So that our house is just full of paintings. You turn here and there. Sometimes I say, oh gosh, put some order into this. Not every painting that you buy, you have to put it up on the wall. But so that we encouraged our girls. And they have just fallen into place. My first daughter, Tonya, had her first art exhibition when she was 7. And I then had to invite every single relative who would pay 50 cents, because they had to pay her. She said they had to pay 50 cents for
She
each
said
paint.
they had to pay.
They did. And she collected probably about $8 at the end of it, but it was her first exhibition. And then they had joint exhibitions soon after they left school. And in 2008, they had another exhibition. I think they had about 32 paintings, and which were all sold in the first hour. So they're probably not too bad, right?
Well, one can clearly see that if you pass around the oval, you can see they're not bad. Yes.
Indeed.
So yes, the love of art by both of you sort of guide them into that place.
That's right. Definitely.
Almost like saying my mother is the best cook in the world. She had me eat it every day. you don't go contrary to that. It's currently 28 minutes after 11 o'clock. You're inside Brunch. The pleasurable company we've got with us is Mrs. Sharon Clarke-Rowley. We are going through a couple of the challenges that she must face as a mother, one, as an attorney, two, and as the wife of the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. We're talking about your daughters right now. Your daughter, Tanya, followed in your lead, became a lawyer. Sanel, psychology. What advice did you give to them? Firstly, was your advice sought by them in choosing a career?
They would always seek our advice in everything. And but being the mother, probably more so, more so mine. And when it came to a choice of career, they would have consulted with both of us. But I think when they were at the A-level stage, they had more or less decided what they wanted to be. I thought Tanya would have chosen criminal law because of her love for those types of books and the TV programs. I think she knows all of those programs and so on and looks at them. But she is a civil attorney. She practices civil law and not following in my footsteps as a conveyancer because she thinks that's too boring. But I think she would have looked at my profession and seen that it was something that she would have enjoyed doing. And she has gone on to do her master's in corporate and commercial law at London School of Economics. And my daughter Sonel, again, she has always had a love for children. And school psychology was therefore for her a natural progression. She did her undergraduate degree in Barbados and then is now doing and completing her doctorate in May of this year at Fordham University. And again, it is something that she has just fallen into very naturally and is doing pretty well in her internship in New York.
That's the other side of it. All right. I am surprised that nobody took an interest in volcanology. Who said that? Nobody said that, right? No.
And you know what? I think I would not have encouraged that. To be honest with you, at one point in time, because I did geography for A-levels and we studied geology, I actually considered being a geologist. And that probably was the first time when I saw Keith, because we had gone on an outing to the University of the West Indies, and we were at the Seismic Research Center, and this young geologist came out to explain to all these sixth formers.
You see me laughing, right? Because my understanding of that encounter is that you really were not listening to what the book...
I wasn't because, he didn't look too bad, but he didn't have eyes for us.
She goes like, are you going to finish that lecture or what?
Exactly.
All right, so this volcanologist you met, you fell in love with him, and that was only 3 years into your practice at that time. 1 year later on, he became a senator, as you mentioned at the top of the program. What I find interesting is because all that you are, very clearly, you are worldly. You understand what's happening around you. How have you been able to be so close to that much politics and resist it?
It's very easy because I don't like politics. I think politics is a thankless profession, but then somebody has to do it. And fortunately for the country, my husband has is carrying the mantle, and I think he's quite capable of doing it. And don't say that because he's my husband, but because of the individual that he is, a no-nonsense individual, a person who is prepared to take the bull by the horns and do what needs to be done. And in this particular case, yes, we are experiencing economic difficulties, but I actually and honestly think that at this stage he is the best person to take us forward and to put us on the right track. But for me, I have been pulled onto the political stage. I wouldn't say kicking and screaming. I have come graciously onto that stage. And as I said previously, the politics would not be something that I will veer towards. You will not see me vying for the post of minister of anything or head of a board or chairman of so and so. That's not for me. That's the role of the politicians. And if you wish to be there, kudos to you. We need you.
And we do need people of integrity into politics. It is something that a lot of folks are jaded about. The last election, Mrs. Rowley, was particularly divisive, very acrimonious. Many people conflating untruths, half-truths, stretched truths, make up stories, all sort of things coming at you. And we quickly touched on it earlier when we started talking, but I want to come back because I feel with all these half-truths, made-up stories, etc., that one has to erect a mental wall, not dissimilar to the impenetrable wall of China, to keep at bay a lot of what is said. But that, too, as you said in the case of women who were told to run away, is easier said than done. Because everywhere you move, everywhere you go, you hear it. And particularly because you know differently, because you are in the belly of the beast, as let's put it that way. You are in surrounded by this. How often is the safety of that wall breached? And when it is, what do you do?
Basically, I try to maintain that wall, and that is because I think politics can demand that for self-preservation you have to create that wall, you have to build that wall. And I think over the years, over the 30 years, and particularly in that last election, it was necessary to have that wall there because we are all human beings, and there are things that were said, as you put it, the truths and half-truths, more half-truths and untruths, that you felt that if you didn't have that wall there to protect you, and if I didn't have the support of my husband, then I don't feel that it would have been plain sailing, so to speak. And both my girls and I relied a lot on his strength because it is almost as if you draw from that strength. He has said in his book that I am his rock, and I think I am, but he is also our rock. And we stand right there at the side around that rock. We climb on it for protection, you know, when the turbulent waters surround us. But you know that there is that safe haven that you can go to. And in most things, because of his strength, we actually pull from that strength. So the wall that was created, and to deal with what went on there in 2015 became necessary, but you also had that support of Keith, so that it made life much easier to bear.
Understood. Understood. 23 minutes away from the top of the hour. Mrs. Sharon Clarke-Rowley is my guest here. You are the wife of the Prime Minister, but first, I think you are a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. As a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, I know it must, I assume it does disturb you that we have a lot of folks with a sense of hopelessness And that hopelessness in the, as you yourself said, we are in tough waters right now, but we'll get better. But you know what they say, you have to stay in the game in order to see the end result. A lot of folks are not so disposed because there is a sort of expectation. There is a comfort in how easy things came before. And now that you may have to do some grinding, they find that is grinding on their patience to them. What do you say?
It is not to be unexpected that people take that position, particularly when for years we have had years of plenty. And now we are being faced with years in which there must be some restraint. Mm-hmm. And in that regard, I have a positive outlook, because I honestly think that the government can take us out of what appears to be a morass for many persons. And I feel that the government can do it, because I think they have the will to do it. And that is something that is important. You must have the will to band your belly, as you speak, to deal with the hard times. And as citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, we have to realize that the position is not as it was before. Money is not flowing. Oil prices are not the same. And therefore, in that regard, we have to be mindful that we cannot continue as we did. And so that we then need to come together as a citizenry to make Trinidad the better place. If it means that we have to take a cut in our salary, then so be it. To me, that is better than having no job, right? So I look at these things and I say that we can't blame the government for everything. We have to have faith in what is being done, but we also have to have an unshakable faith in God that He will take us to where we want to be as citizens of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. They often say God is a Trinity, and we jump on that for every what should I say, all things that may happen to us negatively. And He's there to protect us. We just have to have that faith as we move forward, and I know we will do so.
I want to hearken to something we touched on earlier, that whole question of your family. And at the end of the day, I think just about everyone would agree that if you have family as your foundation, it is not the panacea, but it surely is a road better paved than the one the utilities leave us. Anyway, it is a road that is a lot smoother if you have family. But, you know, we don't have that. A lot of folks say it's because of the demands of life. Families, mother and father's got to be working, don't have time for the kids. A lot of folks have to say it's probably the time we spend on the road. But one of the things I remember said and repeated often is people find time for what they want to do. How do we go back? How is the best way, in your view, we can go back to, one, educating, and two, encouraging this cohesion that we need from the family level that is now so badly wanting?
Rennie, I think that has to start with our children. And therefore, as parents, it is our responsibility to mold those children, because the children are the future of Trinidad and Tobago. Eric Williams said that the future of Trinidad and Tobago lay in the book bags of our children. And to me, that confined it to education. But it goes way beyond that. We have to look after our children. We have to teach our children to be their brother's keeper. And once we, as citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, can be our brother's keeper, then we will not be where we are today. Crime will not be at the level that it is. We will be in a situation where each person will then look out for the other, right? So that I think that as long as we bear that in mind, then we would be on the correct path.
Braving that divide is where the issue is, because after you start with family initially, and then you expand to the larger family, your community. Folks don't even speak to each other no more, and for varying reasons, because they don't feel they have a shared common purpose. And that is something, too, that is going to go a long way towards even covering the upbringing of children, because the children know that the entire family, the entire community is looking out and they can't misbehave, one. And two, your property is protected because your neighbor is looking out for you. How do we bring folks back to understanding those basic things?
What you're saying really is that it takes a village to
Yes,
raise a child.
indeed, yes.
And therefore we have to, through our schools, educating our children, and to a certain extent educating parents, that this is how we have to live. And it means taking us back to the days when the village raised a child, when we must look out for our neighbor. And it's not going to be easy, but we have to put programs in place which would help us and which will teach us that it goes beyond that selfish position where we just look after ourselves. And we must keep an eye out for the neighbor and the neighbor's children. And if we can do this, again, be your brother's keeper.
Even though your humility make you reluctant to accept it, I will go back to my introduction. Pure class, grace, sophistication, intelligence, and real. This is Sharon Clarke-Rowley. Thank you so much for taking the
Thank
time
you,
to be
Rennie,
with
for
us.
having
Truly
me.
appreciate you coming
Thank
this
you.
morning. And
Thank you.
for Mother's Day, I'll bring you around again, hopefully, if your schedule would allow, because it is always important that we tell folks the people you see there are not just politicians, are not just family members of politicians. They are real people. That's why one of the ads used to describe you, I fully agree with.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. You have yourself a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rennie.